Part 1, Chapter 3. My father sucked the marrow from the center of a pheasant bone, and then threw it to Doggo, the snarling hound that kept him faithfully company. I could see by his appetite, voracious as usual, that he had already put our moment of discord out of his mind. I, however, could not stop thinking about the servant's beseeching eyes. I knew too well what would happen next. He'd be stripped shirtless, his wrists tied to a whipping post. 2 men would take turns flogging him until the skin on his back hung down in bloody shreds. And when they'd tired of whipping him, they'd salt his wounds and throw his unconscious body into a prison cell, where he'd wake, if he woke at all, to darkness and agony. All this the price of a single, well-meaning sentence. Order must be kept, my father would say, at any cost. Was there anything I could have said that would have spared that man? I pushed away my golden bowl. I had lost what little appetite I'd had. I decided I would ask Jeanette to tend to the servant, if he was indeed alive, to see that he was given a sip of ale and a crust of bread. Without risking my father's wrath again, there was nothing else I could do. A princess has no true power, and her crown is but a decoration, if she even bothers to wear one. A new manservant came into the room to refill our glasses, and he did it so silently he might have been a ghost. My father took a big draught of his ale and wiped his greasy mouth on his sleeve, a sleeve that I myself had embroidered with blue gentian flowers from our family crest. Well, to be fair, it was not my best work. "And what will my princess do today?" he asked. "I am going to the village," I said, "as I always do on Fridays." His brow furrowed. I knew he didn't want me to make the journey, though it was my favorite part of the week. He objected to my walking among our subjects as if I were not their superior, just as he objected to my sparring with his loyal knight Odo if I were not a girl. But he himself had given me my silver sword, and he had never forbidden me to go down to the village. He knew that if he kept me in the castle, occupied only with needlework and plucking at harp-strings, I would be far less pleasant meal companion. But had he understood how lonely I was, he might have encouraged me to visit the village more often. "Today of all days, you must be quick," he said. I couldn't help but what I said next. "But isn't Ares' army still days out?" My father's face darkened immediately. Have I not made myself clear? "I will not have you talk of strife either," he warned. "I'm sorry," I said quickly, "but don't worry, father. I am not afraid of Ares. You'll protect me." "That I will," he said, nodding his great shaggy head. "I always have. And in my own way, I protect the villagers." My father looked somewhat skeptical. "You're but a child," he said, though not unkindly. "I'm not a child. I'm 17, and the villagers welcome me. They rely on me. They need the food I bring." "Last year was a hard winter," he acknowledged. "Then came the long spring and summer rains," I reminded him, "and many of the crops fell to rot before they were ever ripe." I hoped that he'd somehow hear the question I didn't dare ask. Where were the villagers to turn if not to us? We who had lush gardens, fat livestock, full cellars, and a forest full of pheasant, deer, and elk. If I had my way, we'd share everything we owned. But that wasn't how my father saw it. As far as he was concerned, our family was better than everyone else. Our birthright was luxury, whereas theirs was labor. Our blood was royal, theirs might as well have been mud. He had raised me to believe that anyway, but it was a lesson I hoped I'd failed to absorb. He drained the last of his small ale and set the goblet on the table with a bang. "We have a duty to our subjects in the village, but always remember one thing, Sophia. They are, for want of a better word, beasts. Never ever forget that." I ducked my head humbly. I didn't dare contradict him. My father put his rough hand on my cheek. "You are so dear to me. Be careful today." I forced a smile onto my face. "You always act as if I'll never come back." I placed my fingers around his wrist and squeezed it. "And yet I always do." "There is no honor among beasts, my daughter," he said. Remember that." "I'm always safe," I assured him. "Always safe," he repeated. And it was those words, I believe, that we tempted fate, who is more powerful than any king.